take the meeting to collect my thoughts, but luckily I did before because we've gone so quickly today. I got an issue I'd like to bring up. A couple months ago, maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, Councilman Skinars reached out to me about an important issue, something that's important to both of us, I think, and that was specifically whether people in Sterling Heights are adequately protected against discrimination. And what we're talking about is in employment, in housing, and in public accommodation. So in your job, in your private job, and when you're trying to look for housing, and when you go to the mall or go to a restaurant, are people adequately protected against discrimination here? And we know there's all kinds of laws protecting people from discrimination from the federal level down to the local level. You have Federal Civil Rights Act, you have the Michigan Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, and there's even a human rights ordinance in Sterling Heights that most people might not even be aware of that protects people against discrimination in housing. But from what we found is there's an inadequacy, there's a loophole, so to speak. There's a gap in protection, and specifically where that gap is with regard to your sexual orientation and your gender identity. So, for example, if you are a member of the LGBT community, if you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgendered, you can be discriminated against in employment in the state of Michigan, and specifically in Sterling Heights, and there really is no recourse. And a lot of people I've talked to about this were amazed, really surprised that could be the case, and in fact argued with me and said, no, that certainly can't be the case. So, for example, if you are an employee and you work at a private company in Sterling Heights, say you work somewhere at the mall, you work at a restaurant, you work anywhere really, and your employer calls you into the office and says, I have the feeling that you are gay, so I don't want any gays working here, you're fired, you have no recourse. You can't go to the state, you can't go to the courts, you can't go to the federal government, you cannot get redress anywhere. You're just simply fired, no matter whether you're qualified for the job or not. Same thing with housing. In housing, if you go to apply to rent an apartment, or if you're looking to lease a house, or if you're looking to buy a house, a real estate agent or buy a listing agent, an apartment owner can deny your application simply because of your sexual orientation. Same thing with public accommodations. If you go to a restaurant in Sterling Heights, or go to the mall, or go to a store here, you go to a car dealership to buy a car, they can kick you out and say, we refuse to serve you because of your sexual orientation. And that is a gap. That's a loophole, I guess I would call it. It's a protection that I think should be afforded to people that is not afforded to them in Sterling Heights, or very many places in the state of Michigan. To be exact, there are 33 Michigan cities that have passed ordinances saying that we are not going to tolerate discrimination on any basis in our city. 33 cities in the state of Michigan who have said we are going to be welcoming and open and inclusive, and we're going to have these broad non-discrimination ordinances that apply for all various reasons based on your race, your religion, your national origin, your sexual orientation, your gender identity. Those cities have said, we're not going to wait for the state of Michigan to do something about this. We're not going to wait for the federal government to do something about this. We're going to protect our citizens. We're going to protect our residents right now. Those cities, those 33 cities, have said that individuals deserve protection against discrimination. Those 33 cities have basically said that we are not going to allow employers or landlords to discriminate against you based on an immutable characteristic that really has nothing to do with your job performance, nothing to do with your qualifications to own or lease a home in our city. And what I'm hoping by bringing this up is that Sterling Heights becomes the 34th city. I think Sterling Heights should be the 34th city. A couple months ago, Councilman Skinars and I, and met with Mayor Noddy and members of the administration and asked them to look into see what would it take for Sterling Heights to be that 34th city in the state of Michigan, and hopefully set the wheels in motion to get something done so that we can show to all of our residents that Sterling Heights is an open, welcoming place for you, that it's a place where you can feel safe, it's a place where you will not be discriminated against based on reasons that have nothing to do with your qualifications for a job, nothing to do with your qualifications to own or rent, and a place where you don't have to worry that a restaurant owner or a bar owner or a shop owner is going to kick you out because of what your sexual orientation is. I hope the state does something about this, and I hope that the federal government does something about it to close this gap in protection, but I'm frankly not interested in waiting for them to do something. I'm interested in doing something now to protect all of the residents of our city, all of the people who are prospective residents, all the people who come here to work, all the people who come here to play, all the people who come here for entertainment, for dining, for shopping, to tell them that you will be welcome here, you'll be protected here, and you don't have to worry when you're here. I have what's in my hand right here, a copy of our Sterling Heights Council Rules and Ethics, and this is the document that kind of governs our council members, tells the council members what they can and cannot do, and tells them what is expected of us as members of a sacred trust, a public trust. And it's a 12-page document. On the first page, there's a paragraph that says formulation. It says public office is a public trust, and underneath that it says formulation of public policies. I'll read this verbatim. Elected officials should make policy. In a representative democracy, public interest should be determined and translated into policies and programs by or under the direction of elected officials who are ultimately accountable to the public. Directly underneath that, it says, when it talks about protecting the public, it specifically mentions protection of minority rights. It is the overall public interest that the will of the majority is tempered by a commitment to consider and protect the rights and advance the interests of minorities, especially those that are not sufficiently represented in the normal decision-making process. We have an opportunity to live up to our council rules and ethics. We have a gap that needs to be closed, a loophole that needs to be shut, and without any objection from my fellow council members up here, I would love to see the administration present an ordinance closing those gaps and protecting our residents against discrimination based on all factors. And I'd like to see that at the first council meeting in June. And without any objection from my colleagues on council, I hope we can have something introduced at the first meeting in June. And that's all I have, Mayor.